Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Real Positive Girl podcast with me, Sabrina. This is the show that is going to help you become your best self. Today, we are talking about how to handle criticism. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Sometimes I feel like the person that came up with constructive criticism did it so they had an excuse to say whatever they wanted without getting in trouble or having guilt. And, I kind of mean that in a joke and just not seriously, but sometimes it does feel like that, right? When someone's about to approach you and be like, I have some feedback or constructive criticism for you if you would like to accept it. I feel like unless it's someone that you know really well, it comes off as a little bit pompous and like egotistical if they're like, well, if you would like to accept it or if you'd like to hear it, as if you really have a choice, because if you say no, then you're going to seem like a person that's not being open and willing to accept criticism and see things from a different perspective and learn from your mistakes. But then if you say yes, then sometimes you're in for it. But in all seriousness, I do appreciate criticism because I like to know the truth about how I'm doing, whether at work, socially, or with my fam and my friends. Like, I totally believe that. And I know a lot of people don't value feedback as much as they should because it can be really hard to take and accept. Accepting it, understanding it, just really taking it all in can be quite the task. And sometimes it feels like a chore because, you don't just immediately feel like, okay, I'm open to tell me any negative things you'd like. And I would say that sometimes criticism isn't necessarily negative, but it can be like an offshoot of feeling negative, feeling like you're poking holes in different things, which again, I do believe is helpful, but sometimes it's really tough. So, plus, there is an exceptional amount of people that don't know how to deliver it either. It can come across as real aggressive and dismissive if not communicated well, which is another reason why so many people are turned off from criticism because a lot of people don't know how to give criticism the right way. But that is not necessarily something we're talking about today. However, if you think that's interesting, let me know on Instagram at Sabrina Joy Perozzo if you think that's a good topic to speak on, and I will put that in for the future. But back to it, even if it is spewed, the criticism, even if it's spewed with hate and no consideration, criticism can still be gold, money, dollars. It can definitely be super valuable. So once you receive feedback from someone, you can get a true handle on what is important to someone else, how much time they actually took to evaluate you, and what you've done, and see yourself from someone else's perspective. I feel like the best thing that I just named in that list is definitely seeing it from someone else's perspective. I feel like that just gives you a more open and broader mindset of understanding how you are being received in the world. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to change everything about yourself or to really, care. Also, it's just more of like additional data and information for you to make decisions about what you're going to do and how you are going to handle yourself. So, but also when I mentioned how much time they actually to evaluate you, sometimes people will just do it from a very quick, high, like top down kind of view. They don't really know you. They haven't really done any research. They don't even understand like quite what they're saying. They're just saying it at like a quick glance and giving you that feedback, which isn't super helpful. I feel like someone actually has to know something about you, not just the outside perspective that you get off to actually give you true feedback. Sometimes you can do that if you're just on the offshoot being rude and someone has observed that, but beyond those kind of examples, I feel like they actually need to know something about you. So perspective changes, though, are so integral because it allows you to understand more of a situation and experience it from another outlook, which again will open and broaden your mindset to understand how people are taking you in and also how someone else might see other people in their life. And that can give you even more data to change and grow as a person positively. But again, it doesn't mean that you're locked into doing that. So again, this can shift your mindset of how to communicate better with others as well. and be aware of things you might be doing that aren't very helpful to others that you weren't aware of. Because we will have no idea if we are being offensive or dismissive, rude, or anything else if someone doesn't give us feedback in regards to those things. Because, a lot of us try to be self-aware. It's something that I preach all the time. I do encourage people to become as self-aware as possible. But a lot of times we aren't, and we don't take the time to do that. So we don't know how people are taking us in. We don't know if there's some sort of habit or a little tick about us that we're doing that kind of aggravates other people as a whole in general, universally. So that can be so helpful and beneficial to you if you come at it with a positive mindset. If you come at it with your heart and mind and brain wide open kind of situation, because if you come to it closed-minded, you're not going to be accepting of it. So understand that. And it's criticism. It's never going to feel like the best thing ever. It really isn't, because I'm not saying you have to jump up and down and be excited and be like, yay, criticism. So it's never going to feel like the best thing because you're getting somewhat of bad news, like I mentioned before. But like I hinted at also before, it can be seen as positive and gold money, yo. You just have to decide that's the mindset you are going to take with this type of experience. You just have to make that decision and move forward with it. So something to consider when you are about to receive criticism is to take control of the situation to, not feel as helpless. So if you feel like the other person is coming in too hot, they're really coming at you, it's in your best interest to diffuse the situation as much as possible so the other person will become calmer, thus presenting their criticism with a lighter touch. So, it can be hard to kind of diffuse the situation if someone's really upset, if their criticism was lit on fire because of something that you did to them that they took offensively, which a lot of times we can't control. If we do something and we think we're doing the right thing or we're saying the right thing, where we are within our bounds, we are staying in our lane, as people would say. But people just take that offensively and they just want to come out and tell you like, okay, well, these are the things you need to work on, which can be really tough to take. But if you're able to calm them down and be like, hey, listen, what is going on? Why do you feel like you are so like aggressive in this situation? Or why does it seem like you're upset? What can I do? And kind of like, have them rein it in a little bit, because one, I don't feel like they are going to really get their point across that well if they aren't able to be calm and cool and collected when delivering your criticism, your feedback. But also if they are really upset and that kind of rubs off on you and you feel like you've decided to be upset because they're upset at you, but you don't quite understand why, or you just feel like they're coming at it from a negative view, then you're not going to receive the criticism very well at all. So it's important to, if you do find yourself in that situation, try to diffuse it as best as possible so that you can receive the criticism with a lighter touch and you both will be in a more understanding mindset. So let's go over some tips on how to handle criticism. I have 7 tips for you today that I hope are very helpful. The first one is not to react immediately. Do not react immediately. What tends to happen is if you react immediately in a situation where someone is bringing you negative information and feedback about yourself, you are going to say something you possibly will regret, or say something that could be mean, rude, taken offensively, something that you didn't really mean. You need to take the time to actually think about what they're saying, kind of mull over it a little bit. Decide if it's something that you want to internalize or not. Because like I said, many times, just because someone gives you this feedback, this, constructive criticism, does not mean that you have to accept it and follow it like rules given by a master or something like that. That's not how it works. However, it is important for you to think about it and consider it and see if it is something that would be helpful to you as a person. So don't react immediately. Take a moment to think about it, mull it over, decide if it's applicable to you, and then move forward. So the second tip is don't take the feedback personally. This is so hard for people because it's about you, right? And you're like, how can I not take it personally? You cannot take it personally by taking yourself out of the situation that you're in and really focus on what is being evaluated. So even though they're talking directly to you about something that you've done, you can think of it as something that someone else has done. So let's say that apparently you come across as really condescending. Well, don't necessarily, to prevent yourself from taking the feedback personally, don't think of it as you. Just think of it as someone in general, or the experience of someone being spoken to in a condescending way, and how it would be helpful to do this, that, or the other, whatever their suggestions are. And just really think about that way, like, okay, yeah, being condescending to people is not helpful, and it makes you sound arrogant and egotistical and like you're better than people. We don't want that. It also really turns people off to submitting to your leadership and really, like, coming under you and wanting to work as a team, if you're constantly putting them down with that tone of voice and the way that you're speaking to them. Okay, so, you think of it that way, as opposed to being like, oh my gosh, they really think I'm condescending. What am I going to do? And you start to worry about it. You start to really internalize it. And it spirals out of control in a negative way, but it doesn't really lead you in a direction. You're not allowing yourself to be led in a direction to learn and grow from this feedback if you find it helpful. So don't take it personally. The third tip is to appreciate all criticism. Now, whether or not you use it, because I've already mentioned to you several times that you don't have to take it all in, you don't have to accept it, you don't have to, like, and when I say accept, I mean you don't have to say, yes, I'm going to make these changes. You don't have to internalize it. You can think about it and decide if it's going to be a good fit for you, but I think that you should appreciate all criticism, whether you like it or not, whether you decide to keep it or not, and follow those suggestions, because it takes a lot for someone to actually come to you and be like, hey, I want to give you this feedback or offer this criticism, unless you ask them for it, and that's a different situation. But even still, actually, it can be really tough for someone to hand out that criticism. Some people, it's easier than others if they just really have it in for you. But yes, so appreciate that someone wants to give you this feedback. Appreciate if someone does it in a really respectful and honorable way, where they just want to help you out. And like I said, take it or leave it. It's your choice. The fourth tip I have for you is to ask clarifying questions. I feel like this is really important and something that many people don't necessarily ask or think to do. So sometimes you will, if you decide to not take a moment to really think it over and you ask questions, but you ask them in like an accusatory way, or like you're really defending yourself. But honestly, after you've taken some time to really think about it, or even if you just need a few minutes to think about it, ask clarifying questions. Ask questions that can give you more detail as to what they're speaking of, and like when it has happened in the past, and maybe more ways that you could have done a better job, or maybe how it really affected them directly. Just ask more clarifying questions so you can understand the criticism as deeply as possible, and then it'll give you more information for you to mull over and decide if you are going to take it and follow it, or if you're just going to set it aside, or if you're going to parse it up, whatever decision that you decide to make. The fifth tip that I have for you is you might have to admit you're wrong. I laugh because it's hard. It's hard for us to admit that we're wrong, because no one wants to be wrong. Sometimes, I talk about how I like to make mistakes and failures. I don't like it, but it doesn't kill me as much as it used to. Still, sometimes it really lets me down, especially if I've done a lot of work to not make any mistakes or failures. But again, it can be so helpful because you learn and grow from the situations. And so the same is when you happen to be wrong about something, or you did something wrong and you didn't realize it was wrong in the moment that you did it, but it was. So with criticism, you might have to admit that you were wrong. You might have to admit that you did the wrong thing, and that you will take their criticism and you will, use it the best you can to, work on that particular thing and become your best self, because again, you might be wrong. And that can be a lot for people to be like, okay, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. Or even if it doesn't like need an apology, it's just more of like, hey, you need to do better. And you telling yourself and accepting, yes, I need to do better. I feel like it's going to take a lot for a lot of people to kind of step up their high horse and step back from their ego and understand that, yeah, I make mistakes and I do wrong things, but it doesn't define me as a person. It just really helps me to grow and learn and push myself out of these little boundaries and comfort zones that I let myself sit in. So I think it's helpful, but you might need to admit that you're wrong. The sixth tip I have for you is to ask for a follow-up. I don't say that you have to do this all the time, but I think it could be helpful to you if it's an issue that is ongoing that you would like to work on. So, whether it's from that same person or if it's from another person that may be really great at giving you feedback, I would encourage you to ask for a follow-up time. So, you would hear their criticism and really think about it, ask any follow-up questions, try really hard not to take it personally, and then take whatever bits and pieces from that criticism to help you, do better at whatever it is, and then ask them, "Hey, can we have a follow-up conversation after some time of them being able to observe you getting better or what have you?" And then them telling you like whatever follow-up they can tell you, like whatever they have observed, if they think things have gotten better, whatever their feedback would be now versus before. It could be really helpful because then you can kind of see how far you've come and how you've grown and become better and really worked on that and took their feedback to heart if it really fit you, if you feel like it was good for you. And then you feel better because you feel like you've actually, accomplished something. You feel like you've hit a milestone in making this part that you weren't so good at before much better now. And then the last tip, the seventh tip I have for you is to know you can't please everyone. So again, this goes back to if you receive criticism, which you should appreciate all criticism, but it doesn't mean you have to follow it or take it to heart or internalize it or accept, or you should accept it, but it doesn't mean you have to do anything with it. So all of those things, and despite doing all those things, even if you decide to go through with their feedback and their suggestions on how to do better at this and that, and you do it, and then you ask for a follow-up, and you've asked for all the questions so you can have a deeper understanding, and you have a follow-up, and they still say it's terrible. But you know that you've done better. Maybe other people outside of this have noticed change and that you're better in this, in whatever it is, but this person still says, no, you're terrible, or you've gotten worse. Well, sometimes you can't please everyone. This person might just have it out for you, or they might just they might decide not to see that you've made changes. They may decide that it wasn't enough and they're holding a grudge and they've decided that there's nothing that you could do to make this situation better. And maybe they didn't seem to present that before, but you know that now. And so just know you can't please everyone. And you can even understand that if someone does give you feedback and it seems pretty harsh and it doesn't seem like it's going to fit you or fit your situation. Sometimes people just want to say something because they have something held against you, or they're projecting their feelings of something else, some other struggle that they have yet to overcome or work on onto you, which is super, super common and something I should talk about in depth here on the show. Again, if you want to hear more about that, let me know at Sabrina Joy Perozzo if you want me to talk about how it's often for people to project their emotions onto other people when they have not worked on their own struggles. So that's all I have to say today about how to handle criticism. And I hope this has helped you, and I hope that you benefited from it. So thank you so much for listening to the Real Positive Girl podcast, again with me, Sabrina. Check the description box below with notes for the show. I can't speak for whatever reason. Come visit me on Instagram at Sabrina Joy Perozzo. I'd love to hear from you, talk to you, chit chat with you. Or you can come talk to me actually directly on Clubhouse if you have that app. And I am at Sabrina J. Perozzo. Or send me an email with any questions, comments, concerns, prayer requests, feedback, topic suggestions, or just to say hey, hi, and hello to me. Sabrina, not Sabrina, Real Positive Girl Podcast at gmail.com. And last but not least, visit my website, sabrinajoy.com. I just started updating the blog with blog posts, and they're kind of geared to the same things I talk about here on the podcast. But maybe if you'd like to read it in like word form, or someone else that prefers a blog over a podcast, you can send them there. But thank you so much for listening, downloading, and sharing the show. I appreciate it more than you know. And until next time, have a good one, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.